From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, coming to you live here on this Monday. It is the 22nd day of May, 2017, finals day for a majority of the colleges, including mine. I have one more final left, and that is Wednesday, but other than that, we are completely done with school for the semester. And we will begin today where we'll spend most of this day is with the NBA and how the Boston Celtics pulled off probably one of the most improbable wins of the NBA season yesterday. Now, a couple things I'm looking for at the end of that game is, well, the main thing I'm looking for at the end of that game, how does Avery Bradley, who is known more for his defense, but he is a very good shooter, how does Avery Bradley get that wide open? Now, the way Cleveland lined up, if you want to go through the trail of blame on this, Cleveland lined up with Kevin Love on Jerebko, who was inbounding. And we're going from inbound, the closest to the inbounder, to the farthest away in the corner. So you had Love on Jerebko, Thompson on Horford, LeBron on Marcus Smart, J.R. Smith on Avery Bradley, and Kyrie Irving on Jay Crowder, who was way in the corner. Inbound comes in, Smart gets the ball, which is the only obvious thing. Runs the clock down for about 5 seconds before he finally makes his move, and that move is to a wide open Avery Bradley, who all he has to do is step up and make the three. Now, the bounce probably helped Boston because it took more time off the clock. But my question is, how does Avery Bradley get that wide open? And they only showed one angle last night during the game, because after the game ended, I was done. They only showed one angle during the game, and that was from courtside, like right where the broadcasters would be sitting down in court level behind Marcus Smart. What you see is just as Marcus Smart makes his move for the pass, Crowder starts to run in towards the paint. So when Crowder flashes to the paint, that obviously pulls Kyrie Irving, who is beaten at this point. J.R. Smith must see out of the corner of his eye, oh God, Irving's beat. They're going to get an easy lay-in here. So he pulls off of Bradley to cover Crowder with Kyrie Irving, which leaves Love is out of this play defensively at this point, which leaves Tristan Thompson now the only defender left to get Avery Bradley, and he gets screened off by Al Horford, leaving Avery Bradley with a wide open three. And again, it bounces, which helps because he took that shot with 3 seconds left. It went down with .1. So after a couple of friendly bounces, Boston wins a game that at one point they were down by 22 in the third quarter. I came on here fully prepared today to say, well, Boston, even without Isaiah Thomas, you knew they didn't have a chance. When the starters were in, they battled. When you brought the secondary players in, then it started to fall apart. It went towards Cleveland, and ultimately, Cleveland gets the win, which you knew was going to happen. I was prepared to have that conversation. What I was not prepared for was this Boston team, and I was very pleasantly surprised. That game last night was everything you want out of an Eastern Conference final game or a conference final game period. You want the drama of a team going down big, getting forced to have a dramatic comeback in order to win, which you got. Secondary players rallying without their star, which is what you got. A close bucket to bucket game at the end, which is exactly what you got. Kevin Love draining threes all over the place. He ends up with 28 points. He went 7 for 13 from three. He was 5 for his first 6. And one with Al Horford in his face, which I don't even know how he made it. But the point that everyone wants to drive home now is that LeBron had a bad game. LeBron didn't play well. LeBron went 1 for 6 in the second half. LeBron didn't score a point in the fourth quarter. LeBron last night ends 4 for 13, 0 for 4 from 3, 3 for 6 from the free throw line, and 11 points. That's the only thing that people want to focus on. Is not that the Celtics came back from 21. The fact that LeBron James had a bad game. Well, Michael Jordan never had a minus 15 point game in the conference finals. This is LeBron's fifth. LeBron shies away from the big moment. He doesn't want to take big moment free throws, and we've seen this his entire career. To the people who have brought up the stat that he's changed his free throws 18 times this year, there are guys that can hit free throws and there are guys that cannot. There are guys that feel comfortable from the free throw line, and there are guys that don't. LeBron James obviously is a guy that does not feel comfortable taking free throws, and he's been that way his entire career. This is not something that just started. So when everyone's pointing out that, oh, he's afraid to take late game free throws, he always has been. This is nothing new with LeBron. And the only reason why it's brought up now is because, one, he had an 11-point game in a game 3 in the Eastern Conference Final, and because his team gave up a 21-point lead. That's the only reason why it's brought up. I've said it about every single sport. I've said it about the NBA, baseball, MLB, anything. Everyone has a bad night. Everyone is entitled to a bad night. LeBron James had a bad night. LeBron James had a bad night. That's all there is to it. So when everyone's sitting here going, "Oh, he's not going to be as good as Michael Jordan. He never was as good as Michael Jordan." Jordan never had a game of less than 15 points in the conference final. Listen, to pull off of what Colin Cowherd said this morning, you're legitimizing LeBron James by doing that. You are saying that the only competition that LeBron James has now is Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan is known as the best player in the history of the NBA. That's LeBron's only competition. I also believe the argument that Cleveland is very bored. And we'll get to the NBA being in a bad spot, and we'll get to the NBA needing to do something about this in a minute. To say that the Cleveland Cavaliers are bored, I wouldn't argue that at all. I do think they are bored. LeBron James did not look engaged in the game at all last night. Maybe it's because he thought, well, without Isaiah Thomas, we're just going to walk over this team. We did when he was here. They're worse without him. So what? Why do we have to get up for this game? I'll tell you what. Everybody on Cleveland got up for this game. Everyone on Boston got up for this game. Crowder had 14. Horford had 16. Smart had 27. Bradley had 20. Olenek had 15. Jerebko had 10. Jerebko went 4 for 4 from the field, 2 for 2 from 3. Cleveland got up. The Celtics, Boston got up for this game. And if you want to put this game into perspective, this comeback is a bigger comeback than Golden State's in game 1 because why? Golden State had all of its star players. That and Golden State is expected to win that series. That series is over tonight. And again, we'll get to them more in a minute. That series is over tonight. This is a bigger win. This is a bigger comeback than Golden State's in the first round because no one expects Boston. I did not expect Boston to win a game this series. Nobody expected this series to go to 5 games. The the optimist, the incredible optimist, said, Boston may be able to squeak one, and if they do, it's going to be game 1, not game 3, not in Cleveland, not after they just got done getting beaten by 44 points, down by as much as 55 in that game on Friday night. This is a massive win for Boston and probably the biggest game that we're going to see in the playoffs leading up to the finals. Do I think it's going to be repeated by Boston? No. Now that Cleveland has lost a game, they are going to put Boston down. That series will go back to Boston for game 5 and they will be put down and out of their misery in Boston. Now to the state of the NBA. The state of the NBA right now, I think, is very, very poor. Players have shown by sitting out games that the regular season doesn't matter. Tanking has become a league-wide practice and is encouraged. If Brooklyn came out and said, well, we're tanking, everyone's going to be like, yeah, we know, you should. Get the best pick you can. There have been a lot of issues in the NBA this year. A lot of issues in the NBA this year. The least of which, or the most of which, is the super teams. A lot of people made the argument when Kevin Durant went to Golden State that he completely and utterly destroyed the competitive balance in the NBA because now going to Golden State for him meant that now no other team in the West was going to be able to challenge Golden State. With him and Westbrook together in Oklahoma City, they had a chance at getting after Golden State. They may have needed a couple more pieces to actually put up a decent fight, but they would have put up a fight. They would have put the fight that they would have put up if Durant would have stayed in Oklahoma City would have been a downside better than the one San Antonio is putting up now. And I don't want to hear any more about this. Oh, they would have won game one if Kawhi Leonard was in. They blew a 22-point lead against Golden State during the regular season. So that lead was not safe because Golden State has proven against San Antonio that they can come back from a deficit like that and win. And yes, Kevin Durant definitely did throw off the competitive balance in the league because now there are only two teams. There's Golden State and there's Cleveland, and that's it. They play two times during the regular season, and they will play a minimum of four during the finals, which you know they're going to get to this year, and more likely than not, they're going to get to next year. I would honestly not be surprised if we saw a Golden State versus Cleveland Part 5. Because there is no world that I can see where those two teams are not in the NBA Finals for the next 2 or 3 years to come. Not counting this year. Super teams are not good for the NBA. And again, this was started by LeBron chasing after a ring that he could not win in Cleveland. Instead of staying in Cleveland, going to New York, going to Boston, going to whatever other team was in the chase for LeBron, he went to Miami with Bosh and Wade and went for a ring. And when he got three of them, then he said, you know what? I'm going to go back to Cleveland. Kevin Durant, not nearly as extravagant, not nearly as spectacular, went to Golden State for one thing and one thing only to chase a ring. I said that when they signed him. He was chasing a ring. That's all he was doing. This has nothing about playing with better. This has nothing to do with playing with better players, getting coached by a better coach. This has to do with let me win my ring, and then maybe I'll move. All you need is to watch these games in this year's NBA playoffs to find out that the league is in a bad spot. Yeah, the ratings are up, but honestly, don't let the ratings fool you. The quality of these games has been absolutely horrid. How many of these games that you've seen all throughout the playoffs have been 15-point wins or greater? How many of these games have been played to where you're still not sure whether the other team showed up? The fact that you had and let's look at both game twos from the conference finals this year. Golden State wins by 36. San Antonio's never in the game. Cleveland wins by 44, was leading by 54 at one point. Boston is never in the game. That is a regular season game where one team just straight up does not care. That's not a conference final. What you got last night was a conference final. And will go down as the best game that this postseason had to offer before the finals. These games have been mismatched. They have been non competitive. You knew who was going to win going into every single series. There's been no guesswork. It was the top four teams in both conferences that made it. It's been predictable, it's been dull, it's been non competitive. And all you have to do is look at game two of the conference finals from both sides. I don't want to hear any of this garbage that Kawhi Leonard's hurt. If Popovich is that good, win a freaking game. You want to know how dull it has been watching basketball in the Western Conference final? The fact that you're over a week on now, still talking about Zaza Pachulia. Still. Because that is the only entertaining thing, that is the only newsworthy thing that has come out of that series, is Zaza Pachulia in game one putting his big, dumb, lanky, clumsy foot under Kawhi Leonard rolling his ankle. That's the only thing that that series has provided as far as news, as far as quality, that a week on, people are still discussing it. Meanwhile, game three will not be talked about after today between Cleveland and Boston. That game will not be talked about after today. But Zaza Pachulia sticking his dumb, clumsy foot under Kawhi Leonard gets a week of life. And possibly more after San Antonio gets bounced tonight. Because you know Popovich is going to have something to say. Oh, well, if we would have had Kawhi, we would have won. No, you would have won a game, not the series. No way you would have won the series. No possible way. The NBA is in a dreadful state right now. They're in a woeful state right now. When the players, and they don't have to say it, their actions speak a lot louder than their words do. When the NBA players are sitting out games because, quote, I'm tired, I deserve a night off every now and again, and showing that the regular season doesn't matter, and that for LeBron and for Curry and for Durant and for Irving to show that really the playoffs don't matter until they get to the finals, why am I going to watch any of it? Why would I watch any of it? When Kevin Durant said you don't like it, then don't watch after game three, you know what? I think I'm going to take your advice. I'm certainly not going to be watching tonight. I can guarantee you guys that. I'm not going to be watching tonight. I'm going to do what I usually do, and that's look at the highlight. Well, look at the score, and then from the score, determine whether or not I even need to watch the highlights. Because if it's 136 to 110, I'm going to come on here and say, well, they won by 26. San Antonio was not competitive, as goes the rest of the series. Missing Kawhi Leonard is not the reason San Antonio lost. They were playing a better team. They never had a chance. Off to the NBA Finals they go, and the Mets play the Padres starting tonight. That's what tomorrow is going to be. The NBA needs to fix this super team garbage because that's exactly what it is. It is ruining. There is no competitive balance in this league. There are two teams. That's it. There are 28 others playing for the same thing, and only two have a chance. Remember back in the days of Jordan when all 16 teams, well, give 10 of the 16 teams that were in the playoffs had a chance at winning the final? Not anymore. Now, out of the 16 that make it, you know which two are going, and you know which one's going to win. It's a long story that you know the ending to, so why am I going to watch? Which really begs the question, why am I going to watch next year? Honestly, if I didn't have to do this and if I wasn't looking for a job in radio, there's no reason for me to watch the NBA until these super teams get dissolved. Because if until that day happens, Cleveland and Golden State are going to keep playing each other in the finals. Why? Because they have the best teams. Why? Because they bought the best players. Why? Because the NBA is all about me. It's all about, if you're a superstar, it's all about me. Watch Carmelo Anthony go to Golden State or watch him go to Cleveland. Just to really just to really turn the knife. Before we get to baseball, I do want to say I honestly thought that Isaiah Thomas, that the Celtics put Isaiah Thomas in a situation where, all right, we're getting decimated. We're not going to win a game this series. Let's just say he has an injury. Say he's out for the rest of the playoffs, which is just two more games anyway. Let's say he has an injury to get him out of the line of fire in this. I honestly thought that until I heard that he was not even in Cleveland last night, and then I said, okay, yeah, he's actually genuinely hurt. So to anyone thinking that, I will say yes, he is. I would say he is genuinely hurt because when you don't even go to the conference championship game, yeah, there's honestly there's something wrong. Really quick, before we end the program today, we knew it was going to be an NBA game, an NBA day, but we ran a little longer with that than I thought I was going to. Um, Tonight's lineup for the Yankees against the Kansas City Royals will be Brett Gardner, Gary Sanchez, Matt Holliday, the DH, Castro, Judge, Hicks, Gregorius, Headley, Carter, and Michael Pineda on the mound for the Yankees tonight as they look to bounce back from dropping 2 out of 3 against the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, they just took 2 out of 3 against Kansas City last week. They lost the third game of the series and then lost the first two of the Tampa series. They still do remain in first place by a half a game. They're a game up in the loss column on Baltimore, but this is a properly decent series coming up this weekend for the Yankees, a team they should be beating 2 out of 3, coming home, looking to turn off the 3-game losing streak. For the Royals, it'll be Jason Vargas pitching 5-2 with a 2.03 ERA coming into this game. Alcides Escobar, Mike Moustakas, Lorenzo Cain, Eric Osmer, Salvador Perez, Brandon Moss, Jorge Bonifacio, Jorge Soler, and Whit Merrifield. The lineup for the Kansas City Royals tonight: Pineda 4-2 with a 3.42 ERA. Coming into this start, also tonight on the NBC Sports Network, you have the Game 6 of the Western Conference Final between the Nashville Predators and the Anaheim Ducks. If the Preds win tonight, they will be waiting the results of Ottawa-Pittsburgh to see who they will be playing in the Stanley Cup Finals. Game 6 for that series will be tomorrow. Ducks need to win to stay alive. So again, tonight you have the Royals and the Yankees. Tomorrow, the Mets start a 3-game homestand a three-game series against the San Diego Padres, so I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot from that. Saturday, the New York Red Bulls will take on the New England Revolution. Sunday, Atlanta United plays New York City FC. New York City FC coming off of a win yesterday, 3-0 against Orlando City. And on Friday, the Red Bulls played to a 1-1 draw against Toronto FC. Um, what did I want to get to? Kyle Busch wins the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series All-Star Race last night. Sorry, 2 nights ago. On a wild move on the last restart. Um, Pulling up the finals here. Pulling up the final results here. So Kyle Busch wins. Kyle Larson. Oh, Jesus. Kyle Larson finishes second. Larson finishes second. Johnson finishes third. Kurt Busch, Jamie McMurray, Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin. The top 10 drivers beyond that were eliminated in stages prior. Ryan Blaney finishes 11th, Martin Truex 12th, Clint Bowyer 13th, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 14th, Daniel Suarez 15th, Casey Kane 16, Chris Buescher 17, Dale Earnhardt Jr. 18, Ryan Newman out early, out 3 laps before the end of the second stage with involved in an accident. And Matt Kenseth's day ends 20 laps into the 70-lap All-Star race after his oil cooler fails. Two more bits of news in the automotive world. Scott Dixon wins the pole for the Indianapolis 500, which will take place this Sunday. I believe will be the 101st, I believe, Indy 500. That and he had an interesting night last night as him and former teammate at Chip Ganassi Racing, Dario Franchitti, were robbed at gunpoint at a Taco Bell just outside of Indianapolis Motor Speedway last night. My question would be why an IndyCar driver is going to Taco Bell. 2 arrests have been made in that. 2 teenagers, 2 stupid kids, as you probably would have expected. So you also had that, and Nikki Hayden, former MotoGP rider, was died of injuries that he sustained in an accident on Wednesday. He was out for a bicycle ride, and he was hit by a car. He passed away today. So Nikki Hayden from Kentucky passed away at the age of 35. Go figure. You run all of those races on a motorcycle going 150, 160 miles an hour, just inches away from the ground, competitively, inches away from the ground, inches away from other riders. You survive all of that, only to, on an off day, I believe his birthday actually, to get hit by a car riding a bicycle. It doesn't seem right. So Nikki Hayden passing away today at the age of 35. We thank you all very much for listening. We'll end the show on that, unfortunately. I will see you all tomorrow. Enjoy what should be the final game of the Western Conference Finals today, and I will see you all tomorrow.